Hello everyone, welcome to Sunya IAS. This is the test discussion on the first test for 2023 test series, and we are going to see especially how we have to approach a particular question, because what is the use of test series? Why do you take test series? See, test series is for the feedback on what you have written. Okay, so one important thing is that to get the feedback. Second thing is to learn the additional content. Okay, to learn the additional content and get clarity on that particular topic. So if you observe, model answers have been provided to you. That is where it addresses the content part. If you see, the model answers not only consist what question demands, but something extra beyond it. The reason is that we expect you to know something beyond, because tomorrow question can be tweaked and can be asked something beyond the boundary of this question. Okay, so they can go a bit extent and they can ask a question. In that context, you need some extra content with you. Okay, so for that reason, some extra information has been mentioned in the book, but in the answers. But the most important thing is how to approach the question. So we'll start with the first question, which asks the difference between sociology and social anthropology. For that case, for any kind of questions of such sort, that when they ask difference between two disciplines, or when they ask the interlinkage between the two disciplines, what should be your approach? So follow a basic template with respect to this question. Okay, so whenever a question comes on difference between two disciplines, what you have to do? First, you have to write the meaning. Okay, you have to write the meaning of both the disciplines. Then talk about the similarities between the two. Okay, talk about the similarities between the two. Then move to the differences. And within the differences, okay, so within the differences, you have to emphasize on three things. One is scope. So what is this discipline going to do, and what is the other discipline does? Okay, so write the difference between the scope and then the subject matter. Okay, and then the methodology or the methods that have been used. So write these differences, and in the conclusion, you have to talk that today the differences between the disciplines is very bleak. Okay, so rather than they being independent, they are becoming more interdependent. So one is borrowing from the other. Okay, so different disciplines. So if you take sociology and sociocultural anthropology or anthropology, they are borrowing from each other, and they are trying to help each other and resolve the problems of the current context. Okay, so this way you have to approach a question. Okay, now coming to the first question on sociology and social anthropology or sociocultural anthropology. So what is sociology? Sociology is nothing but a study of society, and whereas social anthropology studies, sociocultural anthropology studies the society cum culture. Okay, so what is the scope of this? The scope of sociology is believed to be limited. Okay, so it especially focuses in the modern societies, whereas social anthropology or the sociocultural anthropology focuses on the pre-literate and the primitive societies along with the modern societies. So it studies both, okay, the scope and the subject matter. And coming to the methodology, what kind of methodology is used in sociology? Sociology uses the quantitative methods. Okay, so they might also conduct field work, but the participant observation, which is the important feature of sociocultural anthropology or anthropology per se. Okay, so you will be able to understand these differences better with respect to methodology when you have done your 8th unit. So if you have done it, then you might be clear with respect to it that anthropology has got particular method which is known as participant observation given by Malinowski. So that method makes the difference between the two disciplines. Okay, so we are more on the qualitative evaluation. We focus on the quality of each and every aspect. But what do? They do the quantitative analysis. The quantitative analysis comes from the methods like questionnaires, interview. Okay, but we use those also. We use both quantitative and qualitative. That means in anthropology you can see both quantitative and qualitative measures. Are you getting? So the thing is that the differences in terms of scope, meaning, subject matter and the methodology. So those things have been mentioned there, but this differentiation is not mentioned in the model answer. Okay, so you can differentiate by writing these things, that what is the scope, what is the subject matter, what is the methodology. So the same 5-6 differences that are given, you divide into these and in a way define the similarities. Okay, so you talk about the similarities that have been given by Brown and Fraser. Brown calls social anthropology or sociocultural anthropology as the comparative sociology, right? So Fraser also talked about the relation between these two. So while writing this, you can develop a good structure to your answer based on this. Okay, so these are the things you have to keep in mind whenever you get a question between the two disciplines. Okay, so these things are very important. Ensure that whatever the discipline it may be, that you make the notes or the answer in the particular format. So if you learn it in that manner, then it would be easy for you. So moving forward to the second question, the question is very simple and straightforward. Define role and status. So you know the famous person who has worked on it, that with respect to role and status, is Ralph Linton. Okay, so his reference you can get from Culture Personality School. Okay, so when we are doing anthropological thought, there we will be learning about him in a greater detail. Okay, so he is the person who has given this definition, and what he calls role and status. Status is nothing but a compilation of duties and the obligations. Okay, so rights and obligations. It's a compilation of rights and obligations, and okay, it comes from. So I'll give you an example so that you'd better understand. First thing is that status is nothing but a position in a society. Consider a family as an institution. So father is a position. Okay, anybody can be father, right? So that position that is remaining is known as status. Okay, so there is a grandfather, that is also a position. Position is known as status. So somebody who is in that position has got certain privileges. Okay, they have also got some obligations. Suppose consider SDM or DM. So what do? They are having certain privileges, right, by holding that particular position. At the same time, they are also expected to have certain obligations on them. Okay, so in order to meet these obligations, they do certain action which we call it as role. Okay, so position they hold is status, and the actions they perform as a part of holding that particular status is known as role. Okay, so that is given in definition of Ralph Linton, which is mentioned in your answers, so you can just go through it. But the most important thing, how to write this answer. First, so it sounds like within 4 lines you will finish your answers, then what to write more about it. So what you can do is that first define role and status. Okay, so you do that, first define it, then after that within status, okay, within status Ralph Linton has talked about ascribed status and achieved status. See, now I have talked about certain things, that being a SDM or DM, or coming to the other aspect that you can see, like being part of a particular caste. Okay, so caste, in caste the status is ascribed. That means just because you are born in a particular caste, you are given a particular status, that Kshatriyas, Brahmins, okay, Vaishyas, Sudras. So there the status is ascribed. Okay, but whereas in case of this SDM or DM, what has happened? So you work on it, you read for it, your skills you utilize, and you write the exam, you clear the exam, then you will get that status. So that means you are achieving it. So there is a difference between the status of two kinds, that is ascribed and achieved. Write that, and then you write about the roles also. So certain roles you have to perform because of your achieved status, and certain roles because of your ascribed status. Okay, so being a sibling of someone, okay, so that is ascribed. Okay, you didn't achieve it, you are just born in that particular family and you have got a sibling. So just by being a sibling you have certain roles as prescribed by the culture. Okay, so based on different cultures different roles are present. So what you have to do, first write the definition and write the types, and then write about the social structure by Radcliffe-Brown. Okay, so according to Radcliffe-Brown, what is social structure? Okay, I'll tell you in simple words. Social structure is nothing but there are a group of people. Okay, so there are different people. Now what happens? You form a group, different people form a group. When you form a group, what happens? You have some relationship with one another. So be it your friends, family, or take any group. Okay, you have certain relationships. When you have a relation, okay, you should have particular behavior, right? So with friends you behave in a particular way, and with family you behave in a particular way, with classmates you behave in a particular way. So when there is a group and there is a relationship, you have particular behavior, and this behavior, okay, this behavior is controlled. Okay, so in what way you have to behave? Who told you you should behave in a particular manner, that you have to behave jovially with your friends and disciplined in the class? Who told you this? These are out of the rules, norms and values. Okay, these are out of the rules, norms and values. And who established these rules, norms and values? Society. Okay, society tells you these rules, norms and values, how you should behave. Okay, so now these rules, norms and values are nothing but the institution. So this is what institution means. Institution doesn't mean a particular structure. Okay, so generally we think that institutions are like structures somewhere, RBI or be it any other building. So it's not like that. Institution is something, rules, norms and values. If you take in case of RBI, so it has certain rules, norms and values that is guiding the economy. Okay, so the monetary system in India. So like people will accept certain kind of money, others won't accept it. Okay, so if you see when the 2000 notes are banned, what happened immediately? People stopped accepting. So it has certain rules, it has set a certain rules, norms and values which people follow. Okay, people don't accept more amount of coins. Why? Because that's a kind of norm that has been established. So for that reason, norms, values and behavior, norms, values and rules control your behavior. Okay, so that is what social structure is. Social structure, group of people having a particular relation. So they have relationships, and these relationships give rise to a behavior, and this behavior is controlled by the institutions. Okay, so now where does roles and status comes? See, behavior or the relationship, when you have a relationship that one person is related to the other, everybody has to perform their roles, okay, by holding a particular position. Now within the institution you have people, okay, so when you have people you have groups, right? So in these groups when they are formed, there are status of a friend, and friend should perform his role. So he says that a society, in a society or in a social institutions, everybody performs their roles and status to maintain the society keep going, to keep the society going. In order to maintain that social structure, okay, everybody should perform their roles and statuses. Okay, so this is the interlinkage of the roles and status to the Radcliffe-Brown, and there has been a question in the 2022 that define or the talk about the Radcliffe-Brown views on the role, status and institution. This has been the question. So you can interlink when you are writing this answer. Okay, so this is the answer to the question of define role and status. So define it, then under that write the different types and write the Radcliffe-Brown's view, and then conclude that in the modern day how the role conflicts and the role strain has come up. So what is role strain? A person having many roles. See, me as a teacher have to take test discussion, I have to teach offline foundation, I also take a QEP or the quality enrichment for the main students. Okay, I have to take society, social justice. So these many roles I have to perform as a teacher. So now what has happened? My roles have been increased. So when my roles increases, I'll be strained, right? So to perform all of them, you will be under particular strain. So that gives rise to role strain. What is role conflict? Role conflict is that you're passing by a road, so you're a good citizen, you're going to your office and you have a meeting at 9 p.m. or 9 a.m. Early morning you're going, it's 9 a.m. and you have a meeting, and what has happened is that an accident. So now you see a person bleeding, and you, being a good Samaritan or good citizen, you have to take him to the hospital. Okay, so you have to take him to the hospital, but you also should go and attend your meeting because entire office is waiting for you. So you'll be thinking that should I waste their time or should I take him to the hospital? Now your roles have come into conflict with each other. Okay, increasing roles and increasing role conflicts. Okay, because of the modern way of life, the changing lifestyle has led to more role conflicts and the more role strain. Okay, and again there is one word known as role repertoire. Okay, role repertoire, what does it mean? All the roles you are performing. Okay, so total number of roles you have, when you sum it, that's used by the term role repertoire. Okay, so this is with respect to second question, and moving on to the third, bilineal and bilateral descent groups. See, generally this is the most confused thing by many of the students, and I think you are aware about the unilineal descent groups. See, let me draw it properly. Okay, so now considering this person to be ego, unilineal descent is nothing but descent from either father's side or from the mother's side. Okay, descent is nothing but a cultural rule which tells you where you trace your ancestry from. Okay, it's just a cultural rule which tells you where you trace your ancestry from. Okay, so now if you take this, so if it is going in this line, then it is male. Okay, so that means patrilineal descent, and if it is going in the female line, okay, so then it is in the matrilineal descent. Okay, so what happens in the descent? Descent is nothing but where and how you are tracing your ancestry. Okay, how the kinship rules are decided. So now in patrilineal descent, what happens? The inheritance and the ownership, or with respect to certain things, it goes from father to child, and it is the male kid or the male who is having the authority and the inheritance rights. It's the same is case with the matrilineal society. So now what happens in the bilineal or bilateral descent groups? In the bilineal descent, you trace from the both sides but non-overlapping things. So I'll tell you, you will get your property and all the movable, the property and the non-movable things from your father's side. Okay, so if you are getting all the property, inheritance and the authority from your father side, and from the mother side you will get some like rituals, customs and those things from your mother side. That means there are non-overlapping events. Okay, so you are tracing from the both sides, from the mother side, from the father side, but for non-overlapping. So that is what we call bilineal. Okay, so property is coming from this side. Okay, and rites and rituals are coming from this side. How the ceremonies and rites are conducted, that is inherited, or that is being traced from the mother's line, and property is being traced from the father's line. So this is what bilineal descent is. Now what is bilateral? Bilateral, there you don't have any descent. See, what is these kind of descents called? It is agnatic descent. Okay, so agnatic means you have male line or female line. Okay, but these descents of bilateral is known as cognatic descent. That means there is no unilineal descent group. Okay, so there is nothing that of that sort like unilineal descent group, and here you trace from the both the sides. See, now what happens is that you've got siblings. These are your parents, and now what is happening is that you are tracing or you are establishing the kin relationship with all these people. That means, okay, both the lateral ones, there it is unilineal. Okay, so in the bilineal it is unilineal. That means like you are tracing one thing from this line, from the grandfather, father, then to the child, grandmother, mother to the child. But you are getting different things, that is bilineal. In the bilateral, you trace or establish your relationship, you don't trace your lineality. Okay, so in the bilateral thing, there is no unilineal descent. So first thing what you have to remember here is that there is no unilineal descent pattern in bilateral. Okay, so here what you do is that you choose your relatives. Okay, so that now all the laterals, lateral means your father's brother, father's sister, mother's brother, mother's sister. So these are laterals. Okay, so now you choose whom you want to establish relationship with. Okay, and you choose from both mother's parents, mother's father, mother's mother, what do you call, and father's father and father's mother. From anybody you can choose your relationship. Okay, you relate yourself with all the people. So that is what happens in the modern society in the North America also. So if you see what happens, they establish their relationship with both parents of mother, both parents of father, and the laterals also. Now what happens, now you are not developing this relations of kins because of giving birth, but rather you are developing because you are choosing them. Okay, so since you are choosing them, you have too many people, and when you have too many people, you restrict yourself. Okay, so when you have too many, you can't have relations with everybody. So that means you restrict and you form a small group which is known as kindred. Okay, so kindred is not result, okay, it is not a result out of descent pattern, but rather of choosing your own group. Okay, so this is what regarding the bilateral descent. Bilineal, it comes linearly from the two sides, but for different purposes. And because coming to the bilateral, in the bilateral there is no lineality, rather it is lateral. Okay, and you choose anybody from any generation and you establish your relationship, that is bilateral. So from the both the sides you trace up to 4-5 generations. Okay, you trace from the grandfather's parents and from the grandmother's parents. Okay, so from the both the sides you trace up to your 8 number of ancestors. Okay, so you call it for 4 generations, that you get 8 ancestors, and you relate all the laterals, okay, and lineals. So it's up to you, but there is no lineal descent pattern with respect to bilateral descent group. So this is the difference between bilineal and bilateral descent. And next, moving further, impact of feminist movement on the universality of family and marriage. Okay, is it the next question? No. Next question is, explain how Radcliffe-Brown studied kinship in terms of social structure. So actually I have given this question in order to emphasize how you have to relate your anthropological thought to other chapters. When we are reading other chapters, or just like we have done the role and status, there I have told you that how Radcliffe-Brown has discussed about role and status in terms of social structure. Now again coming to the Radcliffe-Brown's view on kinship. So when you are studying kinship, you have to relate it to the other topics of anthropological thought and different people how they have discussed it. So for that reason this question has been given. And how he has talked about it? First, he has studied regarding two things. One is kinship terminology, how it is there, and next is kinship behavior. Okay, so Radcliffe-Brown talked about kinship behavior in terms of social structure especially. If you see, he has talked about two kinds. One is co-ed and other is the joking relationship. Joking, what is joking relationship? joking relationship is nothing but a kind of kinship behavior. So what happens among the Batonga of Africa? So when he has worked among the Batonga of Africa tribes, so there what he has done, so he has observed this behavior. The father, that is a patrilineal society. Okay, that means mother comes from the other lineage, right? So now when a person marries a woman and they have a child, now there is mother's brother from the other lineage. Now this person goes and have a very friendly relationship, okay, very friendly relationship with the mother's brother, that means mama, okay, so from the mother side. So he has very close relationship with him and he is very friendly, and he had that lewd conversations, that means the conversations which are joking with respect to sex and other things with her what do you call mother's brother's wife. Okay, so he goes and asks for food and he makes lewd conversation with her and had this friendly relationship. Okay, so now when he has studied this joking relationship, that is there, but with respect to father, okay, so if you see mother side, mother's brother and mother's brother's wife is very friendly. Coming to the father side, father is very strict and father's sister is also seen like a, okay, like with the same respect of father, and they don't see that similar kind of what do you call the jovialness. Okay, so here there is strictness and discipline, there it is the jovialness. Now what is the viewpoint of Radcliffe-Brown? How is he talking about this with respect to social structure? What I have told you, social structure means is a relationship, okay, and this relationship gives rise to behavior, and this behavior is controlled by the institution, and when this is controlled and the relationships are strong, your society and the social structure, so social structure becomes more stronger, okay, and thereby society becomes stronger and it continues. So if you understand the Radcliffe-Brown's view, okay, the Radcliffe-Brown's view, you will get it better with respect to kinship also. So when you study the Radcliffe-Brown structural functionalism, there he says that society is nothing but a closed system which he calls a social system. It comprises of three things. One is social structure, okay, society is nothing but a closed system, that is social system. It consists of social structure, enculturation process and environmental adaptation. Okay, social system consists of these three things. So this you will be studying as a part of your structural functionalism school. So there you have to go through this and just remember that you have to interrelate things. Okay, so just keep these things in mind. So when we take up the structural functionalist school or a question based on that, then I will be discussing these things, don't worry. Okay, and now coming to this. So now if you see in the joking relationship, what has happened? So one lineage is being separated from the other, right? The girl is coming from the other lineage. So every lineage tend to show that they are the above the other, right? So now what happens? The father's lineage is believed to be the above the mother's lineage, and it is the patrilineal society. So they tend to show that their lineage is better. So now in order to avoid the feud between the two lineages and maintain them connected, now what is happening? The child, okay, so the child belongs to other lineage, but the person, the mother's brother belongs to other lineage. Now these two lineages are being connected. Okay, so when you have close relationship over a period of time in the future, okay, you both people are not going to fight and you are going to have a better relations. Now what is happening? Relations between the two lineages are being strengthened instead of developing the feud. Okay, so then two lineages will be connected. Now the father and father's uncle might have been connected in the same manner. Okay, so these relations are building the social structure there, thereby helping the continuation of the society further. Next, coming to the COVID. What is COVID? COVID is nothing but it is adherence to certain forms of behavior during the pregnancy of the wife by the husband. Okay, so when there a pregnancy of the wife is going on, the husband follows certain forms of behavior. Okay, so he tries to imitate the pains of the woman. So imitating the pains of the woman doesn't mean that he acts like that. Okay, so during that period of time, he follows certain rules, that having a particular kind of food, okay, only adhering to certain kinds of food and not doing any other kind of activities. He also goes through such amount of pain so that he could relate what his wife is going through. So this behavior is only to enable the husband realize that what wife is going through. So now what is happening? A relationship is being developed. Okay, so emotional bond will develop towards the child who is being born. Okay, so in order to have that, okay, so in order to have that bond and emotional relationship between wife, husband and the child being born, so what is happening? A kind of behavior is brought in, that is kinship behavior known as COVID, and because of these the relationships are strengthened, and thereby the social structure and the, what do you call, with respect to the society, it is helping to continue further. So it is strengthening the society. So that's what Radcliffe-Brown thought of conveying through these behaviors. Okay, so in the study of kinship in terms of social structure, and if you see, I have discussed this in the model answers also. You can see the answers over there. You can see he talked about three things: unity of the sibling group. Okay, so at the same time, unity of the lineage and unity of usage of mother side and the father side terms together. So he is more focused on the classification. So classificatory kinship terminology. So there are various types of kinship terminology: descriptive and classificatory, and in between classificatory and descriptive, so there are of various levels. So you should know that also. Try to learn the different kinds of kinship terminologies. Maybe it's in the next test. Okay, so here he is more interested because you are trying to unite a group. Okay, unite the siblings or unite the, what do you call, the lineage. Okay, so the people of one descent or one lineage are treated as a group by the others. That means you are getting united, your relations are getting strengthened, or siblings are united, your relations are relations between the siblings are getting strengthened. So if the relations are being strengthened, that means social structure is strengthened and thereby the society. So that's the view of Radcliffe-Brown on kinship. Okay, so moving to the next question, that is marriage and alliance. Okay, so there is a question on marriage regulations and alliance. So here, so you need to observe one thing: whenever the question includes and in between two words, that means you have to write about the interrelationship and not separately. Okay, so again keep in mind, I'm telling you again, those people who are writing marriage regulations separately and alliance theory separately, you won't be awarded better marks, because if that is the intention of the examiner, then he can give marriage regulations A and alliance theory B separately. But if he has given this by a conjunction, that means he is asking about their interrelationship. So now, what is alliance theory? Alliance theory is the theory, okay, that asks the anthropologist to approach the study of kinship in terms of alliance, because if you have to study kinship, try to study it in terms of alliance. So what they are trying to say over here, okay, so what they are trying to say is that in the alliance theory, the kinship or the relations that have been formed between the people is resultant of exchange of women. Okay, so this theory has been propounded by Levi-Strauss. Levi-Strauss says that there is alliance. Okay, so there is alliance because in the past there is no order in the society, so people used to live without any order. There is anarchy in the society, and when there is anarchy, okay, so people used to fight with each other. So they used to have groups and they used to fight with each other. So when they were fighting with each other, okay, now at a point of time they think that instead of fighting you can have a cooperation rather than conflict. So in order to have cooperation, he believed that there should be some exchange because he was influenced by Marcel Mauss theory of exchange. So this all things you will be understanding when you understand the structuralism properly. So that is part of anthropological thought. The need for including these questions in these chapters is that you need to understand the importance of those things. Okay, so though you don't understand the answer now, or you are not able to answer now, don't worry, but you're learning what's very important, because people will learn about regulations and they'll ask these questions, and this is the previous year question, and when you go there you don't understand how to perform. Okay, so just understand what I'm trying to say, and if you're not able to relate, you'll understand it when you finish your anthropological thought. So Levi-Strauss says that there is anarchy and the cooperation should be developed rather than conflict. So at that point of time in the primitive societies, what do they have? So everybody is practicing hunting gathering, same kind of material they have, goods, so they can't exchange, it's of no value because they have same thing. And next, ideas are also same, so they can't exchange that also. So because at that point of time they don't have a different ideas or innovation of that sort. Okay, now what is left is male and female exchange. So he believed that initially it was the men dominated society, so that's why they exchanged the women. Okay, this exchange concept was influenced by Marcel Mauss. So Marcel Mauss talks about that the exchange between the two groups leads to the solidarity between the two groups. So he writes about the gift in a book known as The Gift Exchange. So there from he has influence. Okay, Levi-Strauss has read that book and from there he got influence and he used that to explain this exchange of women. Okay, now exchange of women between the two groups has led to the alliance and formation of kins. Okay, that is where alliance theory comes from. And he said that why did the exchange happen? Because of two things. One is incest taboo and other is the reciprocity. Reciprocity is nothing but the obligation to give and take. Okay, so because of these two things the exchange happened. Okay, the alliance is because of these two things. So generally incest taboo is seen from the negative point of view. Okay, so that like incest should not be practiced and it is dangerous, for that reason it is not being practiced. Okay, so because of the inbreeding thing. But Levi-Strauss sees that this negative aspect is giving rise to positive rules of choosing from whom we should marry. Okay, so now what is it telling? You should not marry from your own group. That means it is telling from which group you should marry. Okay, so there you get this rules. Okay, so what is it telling about? It is talking about prohibitive and prescriptive rules. Okay, prohibitive and prescriptive rules. Prescriptive, you see that doctors write prescription for you to take medicine, right? You can't take other medicines than the doctor has prescribed you. That means you should follow these medicines only. In the same way, there is something known as prescriptive rules. They tell you from this group you have to marry, that means you have to marry from that group only, you have no choice. Okay, and prohibitive means you should not do certain thing, so that is prohibitive. So that means you should not marry from within your own group. At the same time, you should marry from the other group, that is prescribed to you. Okay, so that is what the prescriptive and prohibitive rules which we talk in marriage are resultant out of this alliance theory. So now you are understanding, right? Alliance theory is talking about the marriage regulations over there. Now the criticism for this theory of marriage regulations and alliance theory over here is that Rodney Needham, okay, Rodney Needham says that, see, if you are relating only these two types of rules, that means you are underestimating the other rules. So, there is other rules or other regulations, that is preferential.